Hey travelers, I know you're all about that savings, and so today I thought that we could talk about some cost analysis. We actually got a great question regarding the differences in cost between Disney parks and the Disney cruises, and ultimately which one will be most worth it for travelers. So let's dive in and see what comes up. First and foremost, I do need to set some ground rules to make this a fair fight. So here's the structure that I'm going to follow. First, I will be using Florida as the main hub for the parks as well as the cruises. Seeing as you can set sail out of different ports, I only think it's fair to keep this competition centralized. Like personally for myself living in Texas, it just makes more economic sense for me to drive down to Galveston rather than to fly to Florida. But to keep things fair, let's just look at Disney World as well as Port Canaveral for this experiment. Second, and I know that this comes as no surprise, but traveling to Disney during certain peak seasons like major holidays and even the summertime can easily cost you more than traveling during off seasons. Now, I get that most people do need to travel during seasons like spring break and summer for their kids, and because of that, I will be looking at a July vacation for both Disney World and Disney Cruise. However, if you are able to travel during off seasons or during the school year, then by all means do this, as it will give you the most bang for your buck. Now third, I do want to add that in order to make things as fair as possible, I am going to stick to a 4-day cruise as well as a 4-day base park ticket package for Disney World. Along with this, I'm not going to include transportation cost, just strictly the cost of the Disney park package as well as a cruise package. I will be including the Disney dining plan with this because the cruise is basically an all-inclusive, and so it just makes sense to see what the cost of food would be for the Disney parks. Last but not least, I will be comparing these vacations using a family of 4 with 2 adults and 2 children, one age 10 and the other age 9. The reason I'm doing this is that according to Disney, any child at or over the age of 10 is considered an adult. This is due to the fact that they can normally eat larger portions of food and they can ride most of the rides. Because of this, the cost will be a little bit higher if you are traveling with children over the age of 9. Alright, so with these rules in place, let me go ahead and start with Disney World. When it comes to the Disney package, you have multiple options to choose from. Personally, staying on site is by far the best way to go, as the amount of perks you receive really outweighs staying off site. For starters, anyone that is staying at a Disney resort will receive early access into the parks, giving you a leg up on everyone else. Also, you're going to receive free Disney transportation, meaning you don't have to drive yourself to the parks and pay those extensive parking fees. The one problem you may run into, though, is that there are dozens of Disney-owned hotels to choose from, and all of them can vary on cost. There are 3 main categories of hotels at Disney, those being value resorts, which are the cheapest, followed by moderate, and then deluxe being the most expensive. I've personally stayed at all 3 types, and although deluxe resorts really are an amazing experience, they do eat at your wallet. The 2 main reasons why people tend to choose deluxe resorts over the others is that 1, these resorts are really close to the parks. And even some use the Disney monorail, giving you an even faster way to get to the parks. Another amazing perk of staying at a deluxe resort is that you get extended park hours, unlike everyone else who has to leave when the park closes. Now, if that seems worth it to you, then by all means, go for it. But for this example, I am going to recommend a value resort. Art of Animation is one of the best value resorts for families, as most of the rooms on site are family suites, which help to accommodate larger families. Now, I will say if you're traveling with less than 4 people, you may want to consider Pop Century, as Pop Century is the cheaper of the 2, but still has many of the same perks, just smaller rooms. The one perk that makes Art of Animation and Pop Century so appealing is the Disney Skyliner, which is a free transportation service that takes you to both Epcot and Hollywood Studios. Not only that, but the theming of these 2 resorts is outstanding. I promise that your little ones are going to be thrilled about these hotels. So before we go over cost, I do want to explain that I will be giving rough estimates versus a solid price. Mainly because prices can always change, but the numbers I will give you are current and accurate, at least as far as the time that this video is going out. So here's the estimated cost for a family of 4 staying at Art of Animation from July 7th through the 11th of 2025. With a 4-day base ticket, you're looking at a rough cost of $5,200. But since we are including the dining plan, you will need to add another $1,300, putting the total cost up to $6,500. Now, prices can always change as deals and promos may come up before your trip, such as 25% off your room or 15% off for being a Disney Plus subscriber, things like that. But since I was looking at 2025, currently there were no promos available. However, this doesn't mean that you should wait to book that vacation, as promos can always be applied at later dates. And seeing as rooms do tend to book up fast, it is a good practice to just go ahead and secure your room by paying that small deposit fee, and then you can make payments along the way. One thing that I want to add is if you do decide to book using us here at Third Wish Travel, we are constantly price monitoring, and we will apply any promos that can help save you money so you don't have to be on the lookout yourself. In fact, we just saved our most recent client who's going to Disney about $2,000 by applying these promos when they came out. So this is just one of the perks of using a travel agent like ourselves. So if you would like to book a Disney vacation, please reach out to us via our website, which is www.thirdwishtravel.com, or you can email me directly at brian@thirdwishtravel.com for more information. All right, back to the show. Now, I wanted to explain the dining plan a little more because I get that $1,300 price tag may come as a shock to some of you, and some of y'all might decide to opt out of using it, and that's perfectly fine. Like, I understand that in some situations you could actually save money by just spending it yourself, but I did want to include this price just because it has been proven time and time again that this is fairly accurate to what the average family will spend on food while in the parks. So if you do decide to opt out of the dining plan, I would still set aside the same amount of money that it says it's going to cost. This way, you just know that you have that money, and if you don't spend all of it, then you have some extra cash on you for merch or anything you like. One other thing that I do want to add is that I did choose the Cars Family Suite at Art of Animation, which is not a preferred room, meaning close to the lobby or transportation. If you do want to be closer to transportation, aka the Skyliner, then you will need to pay a little bit more for those types of rooms. These are the Nemo Family Suites at Art of Animation, or if you're staying at Pop Century, you want to pick the 60s section. So overall, for a family of 4 staying 5 nights at Disney World in July, you could expect to spend roughly $6,500 just for the basics. Now again, this does not include any discounts nor transportation costs, or things like travel protection, memory maker, and of course Genie Plus, which could easily add a couple $100s to your trip depending on how many rides you want to prioritize. So make sure that you are factoring that in when you're budgeting for your trip. Also, just for kicks, I did look up the same options but during mid-September, which tends to be an off-season. And the cost of staying 5 nights at Art of Animation with a 4-day base ticket and the dining plan came out to roughly $5,800. So again, if you can travel to Disney during the off-season, you could end up saving a lot more money. Alright, so let's look at Disney Cruise Line. Now, just like the Disney hotels, there are multiple ships and room categories. Currently, there's only a few ships traveling out of Port Canaveral, and for this experiment, I did pick the Disney Wish as it is one of the newest ships. However, you could save a little bit more money if you did go with the Disney Magic, which is an older ship. Now, when it comes to room categories, you really have a few options here. These being inside staterooms, which are the cheapest, followed by Ocean View, which basically has a window that you can look out of, and then you have veranda staterooms, which offers some more space and a balcony, and then lastly, you have the concierge rooms, which are high class, high dollar. But these can be well worth it if you do have the money to spend. But for this example, I think that it would be fair to use a veranda stateroom, seeing as a family of 4 would be a little bit more comfortable here, and having that balcony really helps with any potential seasickness as well as claustrophobia. Another thing to consider is where you want to travel. Seeing as we are going out of Port Canaveral, the logical locations would be the Bahamas or the Caribbean. But if you're wanting to explore other parts of the US coast, or places like Hawaii, Alaska, or even over in parts of Europe, the cost is going to be a little bit different. But for this example, I am looking at a 4-day cruise to the Bahamas, stopping at Nassau along with Disney's private island, Castaway Cay. So with all that in mind, a family of 4 traveling out of Port Canaveral from July 7th to the 11th of 2025 and staying in a veranda stateroom, you're going to be looking at a rough estimate of $7,700. Now, a couple of things to take note here. One, remember that this is an all-inclusive ship, meaning that basically all of your meals are paid for, minus any alcohol drinks or their specialty dining locations, which are adult exclusive. Also, a veranda is the more expensive option besides concierge, so you could save a little bit more money if you do downgrade your room. This also doesn't include any extras like if you want Wi-Fi service while on the ship, if you want to book any of those port or onboard experiences, travel protection, and of course transportation. So keep that in mind, as these can add a few $100s to a couple $1,000s to your trip depending on how much you want to do. Now, again, just for fun, I did look at a mid-September trip for a family of 4 staying in a veranda, and get this, the cost came out to roughly $4,700, which is crazy, seeing as just pushing your vacation to the off-season can save you roughly $3,000. Like, yeah, why wouldn't you? But again, I understand some people are restricted to certain times that they can go on vacation. So again, just to keep things fair, let's stick with our July estimates. So here's the hard part, because if it came down to cost alone, clearly the winner goes to Disney World, being roughly $1,500 cheaper in the summer. But before you make your decision, I would encourage you to do a little research into the pros and cons of a Disney cruise versus the Disney parks. I do plan on making a video in the future comparing the two, so if you're not subscribed already, make sure to go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that way you can be notified as soon as those videos release. One of the main reasons that we love Disney cruises is that first and foremost, the name of the game is relaxation. For those that have gone to the parks, you know how exhausting it can be. Not that this discredits the parks, but there's just something special about being on a Disney cruise and not feeling tired all the time. Now, another perk of Disney Cruise is that you will always know just how many people you potentially are going to run into on the ship, as this ship can only hold a certain amount. But with the parks, it is always hit or miss, and those crowds can become a nightmare. Now, to back up the Disney parks, you will without a doubt see more and experience more. With rides, themed attractions, and shows, not to mention hundreds of restaurants to choose from, you really should just plan to stay longer than 4 days because there's just so much to see and do at Disney World. Personally, the parks have always been like home away from home for me, which is why for my wife and I, it really isn't a competition. Both the parks and cruises are amazing and well worth it in their own right, but that is something that you need to decide for yourself. With our son on the way, we've already been eagerly talking about Disney vacations and what ages we should take him, and one of the things that we did decide was to go ahead and go on a cruise first versus going to the parks, as personally he isn't really going to be able to do much of the rides anyway, and the amount of things that we're going to have to carry just seems overwhelming. Now, we may end up taking him to Disney World or Disneyland before he turns 3, as his tickets would be free. But a cruise still just sounds so much easier with a baby/toddler, because not only does Disney Cruise have amazing childcare, but this type of vacation is just so much more carefree and relaxing to us. It's really a no-brainer to spend a little bit more money for a relaxing vacation like this. But again, this really comes down to personal preference, and I hope that this video has helped you have a better understanding of the cost comparison between the two. If anything, I hope that this has been an eye-opener just to see how much money you could actually save if you're planning to go to Disney during certain off seasons. Now, if you would like to see a more in-depth comparison between the parks and the cruises, let me know in the comments down below, as I would be happy to make a video about them. Also, if you have any questions regarding specific pricing for your family, please don't hesitate to reach out to me personally via my email, which is brian@thirdwishtravel.com. Now, as always, if you need any help booking your family vacation, Third Wish Travel is more than happy to help. In fact, we would be honored to help you out. Thank you again for taking the time to watch this video. Please make sure to subscribe if you're new around here, and give this video a like if it helped you out. If you have any additional questions or thoughts, please leave those down in the comments below. See y'all in the next one. Best wishes.